Welcome back, everybody, to the Marketing Rules podcast. And today's a little different. As opposed to kind of just a one-on-one, I'm being double teamed by the team from Sales Geek. So I've got Richard and I've got Matt from Sales Geek with me, who are, and yeah, I probably double team was totally the wrong term to come up with.
Not gonna lie, mate.
You know what? I'm going to live with it. As you know, the way this podcast works, there's no edits, there's no cuts. We just carry on. We power on through. So anyway, thanks for joining me today, guys. Richard, you're probably the best person to just kind of give me a little bit of background about Sales Geek and what you guys do there.
Yeah, cool. So I'm founder and chief geek here at Sales Geeks. My little baby. She was born on the 1st of March 2017. So we're quite a young company, fast growing. Been privileged enough to win some awards for that growth. Yeah, I guess in really simple terms, we are on a mission to change the way the world perceives sales. It's currently a dirty word. People that are in it aren't particularly proud of it. People in education at the moment aren't probably aspiring to be in it, and we'd like to have some influence on changing that. So at the minute, we do that through the medium of providing part-time sales director services to small businesses to help them ethically sell more products and services. And we also deliver accredited sales training, both live and through our on-demand services as well.
And you've got an app as well, right? That's kind of cool. I think the mod podcast I recorded with Matt is on the app.
Yes, it is. Yes. Yeah, you are. Yeah, you feature on the hub. So it's a weird thing because whenever we mention that to people now, they go, "Oh, that was a smart thing to do through COVID." We actually started that development process a year before COVID was even a thing. We actually launched it the week before Boris put us into lockdown, which was good fun to try and market a brand new app, which is very unique in its own right at a time where everyone just wants to talk about COVID and lockdown. So we're just about to go through a Dev 2, a 2.0 process with that as well. But we believe that to be pretty much the most accessible sales training product on the market and actually one of the only truly global sales community opportunities for people. Sales is a lonely place, as well as not having a lot of access to training for individuals. So yeah, we're super excited about the hub. It's a really, really, really good product for individuals and for businesses. And sales training historically has always been the domain of large companies with big training budgets. And we wanted to make it more accessible to more people.
Yeah, I mean, I like what you guys are doing, and this is not me blowing smoke up your ass, and plus because I've also been on Matt's podcast. But it is one of those things. I've become I'm not much of a salesperson, but being what I do, you have to kind of turn to sales at some point. And I'm very much a big advocate of sales and marketing, sales and % marketing, not sales and marketing. And I like the approach that you guys were kind of taking, that there's more of a holistic view to all of this, and it's all kind of entwined, which, fun enough, brings us on to what I wanted to talk about today. So in my sphere of staffing and recruitment, we can be a bit slow to pick up on new kind of ways of working and new kind of methodologies. But one of the things that has kind of cropped up on my radar is RevOps. And I know you guys kind of have a bit of experience in that. So it would be good to kind of get some of your kind of feedback on that and how you think it can be kind of deployed, how it works, pros, the cons. But let's start with, and I'm going to pick on Matt to do this because I've got two of you here, I can do this now. Matt, when I say RevOps, what am I talking about? For the audience who don't know what we're talking about, can you give us a quick, brief intro for everyone who's listening?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, RevOps is a pretty new term insofar as corporate jargon, really. And for me, and it's especially, that's a big part of what we do when we go into companies as their part-time sales directors, is we're not really going as sales directors, we're just going as directors. Because a lot of the time when we're working with businesses, it's a case of companies don't communicate. And so the whole thing with RevOps as a concept, as a team, a department, whatever you want to call it, it's essentially letting people below director level actually have an understanding of what's going on in different departments. Also understanding how something that happens at sales then affects operations and how that then affects operation from a budget point of view, from a man-minute kind of point of view. Same with marketing as well. I think we have spoken on our podcast where, sales have the cliche idea that, marketing is just a colouring in department. There's a whole lot more involved in that. And realistically, sales need to understand what marketing are doing. So those conversations and messaging is all aligned. And it's just, realistically, it's all about everyone focusing on the main goal, which is increasing revenue. And the only way to do that is by letting everyone else know and having an understanding of, okay, if I do this, this is the effect down the line, and making sure that doesn't happen.
It's interesting because when you read about RevOps and some of the diagrams you see, it just kind of like the main change you see, and this is way oversimplifying it, and I don't think it's correct, is it just these departments just report into a different person. There's a different kind of reporting line basically, but the way you're describing it is it's actually a different kind of working methodology and a different structure that it's much more kind of inclusive. Basically, that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, the idea being what you're talking there is it's still that issue with siloing that I know we've spoken about, where RevOps, where you report into your sales manager, but then you report into the RevOps manager, whatever. You're still going up and then down the chain. Whereas if you can get departments to work across levels as opposed to having to go up and down, they can just work across departments. All of a sudden, we see this in companies that we go to. All of a sudden, communication errors. For like a manufacturing production area, if people in different departments can talk about something rather than it having to be, the old Chinese whisper thing where it goes to the manager, he then tells the other manager who interprets what he said differently, then goes to the other operative. All of a sudden, that's gone through 3 layers of interpretation, whereas just getting people to connect and talk across departments about what their issues are, find it just solves things so much quicker.
And Richard, is this something that has kind of always been there, but has just kind of been rebranded in a kind of a trendy way for kind of 2020, or is it generally a new way of working?
I think it's some clever branding. If I'm being brutally honest, I think it'd be news to some people, but I think good businesses have had a joined up approach for a long time, because I think also as well, I think some businesses have the wrong definition of marketing as well. Personally, I think most people, when they hear the term marketing, they just think lead gen, like it feeds the funnel. There's so much more to it than that. And I'm not a marketeer, but I do have a lot of professional respect. I've worked very closely with marketing leaders as a sales leader myself, but equally, so it's when I started Sales Geek, and yes, I had to go out and sell what I did to people to get some customers, but I was also sort of creating a brand and marketing it as well. And what I realized really quickly was actually that a lot of the science behind it is the same in terms of understanding value proposition and target audience and channels, and really we all should be speaking the same languages. And yes, some of the execution of that is different, and there's skill set differences in the execution between about outbound selling versus driving inbound through digital. But actually, the front end, the strategic bit, the language should be very similar.
So does this kind of mean that? And this is slightly again off topic, but we knew we would go there. Is there now this very grey area between sales and marketing? Now, are salespeople marketeers and marketeers now salespeople? And if so, is that something we're going to stick with? And I know when I spoke to Matt in our podcast, I described it. There used to be sales and marketing, then it was sales and marketing, and then it's sales and marketing, and it's kind of moved away. And now maybe we're coming back to kind of it all being kind of blended together again.
Matt?
I'll jump in. I'll jump in on it. I mean, it's not a case of we're getting into sales being marketing, marketing being sales as such. I think there'll still be that definition there in skill set. So I think marketing is all about broadcasting a message, building a brand, and getting people, interested in getting them to take action. Then it's the salesperson's job to take that interest, qualify, and then take it through to the close. But there's still a lot of power. And for our online academy, I've just filmed a course on this, talk around marketing yourself as a salesperson. Because, one of the big things that we've had here at Geek is essentially freedom. So we, in our business, no matter what we're in, we all still classify ourselves as salespeople. We're responsible for growing the brand. Yeah. We still classify ourselves, we're responsible for growing the brand, bringing in leads, converting them. And, that's largely sort of spearheaded by the sales team, but we as, for example, me and the delivery team, I'm still responsible for part of that. And for me, key thing for me has been growing my own personal brand, which then in turn feeds into the company brand. And I think a lot of salespeople out there need to realize the power of personal branding.
Mm-hmm.
And directors and managers need to realize that if you're employing someone, you've got to trust them. Working from home was a perk pre-COVID. Oh, we let you work from home. It's like, okay, so you trust me to actually do my job. And then there's a lot of companies who still muzzle their staff on what they can talk about on social media. And it's like, well, look, you've hired them. You're going to have to take them warts and all. And, if they're not skilled enough to grow a personal brand on LinkedIn, then look at either investing in training or just let them crack on. But the idea of being, all of a sudden there's one message from the company. Well, actually, there's lots of little messages going out, and it's a lot more personable. It's like if we look at influencer marketing, nano and micro influencers are now becoming a thing because people are getting disingenuous. It's disingenuous, and they're getting desensitized by Kylie Jenner, who has like 20 million, 100 million followers, putting a post out about Pepsi, whereas someone small, local, niche focused with 1,000 followers gets a lot more engagement.
Oh, well, there's time for me still with my 1,000 followers on Instagram then.
There's still a chance, man. Still a chance.
I'm just waiting for Pepsi or Coke to be knocking down my door then.
I think just to chime in on that, I think there's three fundamental things that have underpinned the need for salespeople to change, but also marketeers to change as well. And that, for me, from a sales perspective, is sales process is longer than it's ever been. So I saw a recent stat: the average B2B sales process is 25% longer than it was 5 years ago. Right, so it's a longer process. So that means we are engaging with people for much longer, more points of communication. Yes, face to face, but also there's other types of communication, which means that salespeople have to learn an element of marketing skill within that, certainly from a Marcom's perspective. So that's the first thing. Second thing is more people involved in the sales process, right? So in terms of communication, again, we need to be communicating with more people from the other side. And then the third thing is we also know that people are arriving at us and our sales departments much later in their thought processes, right? So if you had that sort of virtual funnel, people are now reaching out to organizations much later because there's much more information available digitally, and all of that stuff really is underpinned by changes in consumer behavior. We buy stuff on Amazon. You wouldn't buy something that hasn't got people that recommend it, which means that as consumers, we want to buy quickly. We want to buy from a trusted resource. We sometimes want to get opinion from other people, which is why you read in the reviews, which then means we take that stuff back into our B2B world. And that means we want to get other people's opinion and do more research when we're making B2B purchases, because it's still the same human being. It bugs me that people go, oh, B2B, B2C, we're humans, right? So we're still fundamentally wired in the same way. And these changes have happened. And that means that salespeople, sales organizations, but also the marketeers have to behave differently and learn new things and behave in different ways.
I mean, the argument could be made that B2B is actually more of a person-focused kind of engagement than B2C. Or to a certain extent, people do buy people, and digital B2C, if you're an Amazon, for instance, never even have anything to do with the customer. But if you're buying, IT services for your business, then you're not going to, without looking kind of in the whites of their eyes and having that conversation and having several conversations, you're not going to purchase from them. So it's interesting that kind of got that, and I completely agree around the personal branding piece, and as kind of a couple of different kind of points around, you then become the brand advocate as well. So you're not only building your own brand, but you're also building a brand for the business that you're working for. And I agree with Matt; it does come down to trust, and there are a lot of businesses that I think probably because they've just made bad hires and they've been burned and stung, and they just never kind of got to that stage where they could kind of trust their internal advocates to kind of do this on their behalf, basically. Let's wind back to RevOps if we can. So we've kind of defined what it is. What's the difference between kind of RevOps and other kind of methodologies, and what are the pros and cons? Because they can't just be kind of like a silver bullet, basically. There must be kind of downside to kind of working this way. Richard, maybe you can kind of explain a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think again, like a lot of these things, it's going to vary from business to business as well. What their need is, and like a lot of things in life, a lot of things in sales. Like for me, business and sales is like golf. It gets overcomplicated by people that want to sell books, and everyone's looking for the algorithm. Everyone's looking for the silver bullet. It don't exist. So I think it means different things for different people. Like I know certainly in our business, we have a very joined up approach to both our what would be our sales and marketing effort. And yeah, like I said earlier, at an execution level, there is some obvious skill set needs there. The guys that are engaging with clients on phones aren't running our PPC campaigns, right? So there is difference in skill set there. But in terms of the conversations, and in terms of the understanding of who we're speaking to, how we're speaking to them, what that language looks like, what we're targeting, channels, etc. For me, at a very, very basic level, all those people should be in the same room. And that might sound like a really obvious thing to say, but you walk into a lot of big businesses, you've got sales department, marketing department, sales meetings, marketing meetings. The only time the sales director and the marketing director sit in the same room together is at the board meeting when they're talking about non-operational stuff. And I've never got that. I've never got that. And actually, I've positively seen in some organizations that if there's a divide, often there's sales and marketing functions don't get on, which is a really big issue when that happens. But you see it because they get measured on different things. I think animosity builds up sometimes. Usually the sales guys, been brutally honest, are under a bit more pressure than the marketing function. A bit less now with inbound because there's some more measurable stuff there. But I'm positively seeing some bad situations where the two departments just don't even get on with each other, and that's just disastrous at that point. If you're not joined up and you're not operating as a revenue generative function, then you are not getting the best from your team ultimately, because you want to create a scenario where 1 + 1 = 3, if you know what I mean. And I don't think it does in a lot of businesses.
And one of the advantages I can see from this, and I think me and Matt might probably talk about this before, so I'll redirect this back at Matt, is account-based marketing, right? I mean, this is just a godsend when you kind of want to do it from a marketeer's perspective. If you're sitting with the sales team, you understand the clients they're trying to target. You understand the personas they're trying to target, the really key accounts they want to get into, who they want to take off of our competitors, and how as marketeers we work with them directly to do this. And that's one of the key kind of pros I can see from working in that methodology. Matt?
Yeah, no, definitely. It's if it's like Richard said, where you have sales and marketing completely separate, measured on different metrics, then obviously you then end up in that animosity. And I've been in companies where you've seen that happen, and you want to reach across in the aisle, but then the people up above you are at loggerheads, and that the situation can be solved very easily just by talking and working on things collaboratively. I think what we'll find as well is millennials, I think now make up between 60 and 70% of the workforce. So as a generation, like we are more collaborative as a generation, and that's going to then happen when Gen Z come in. It's just going to, I think, naturally work towards this collaborative, and you'll probably see an end to sales and marketing, and it's going to be sales and marketing a lot closer.
You stole that from me.
I just want to make
note today. I have stolen it from you, but it's a really good line, so I'm stealing it. I'll just credit you every single time. But let's take account-based marketing, for example. Rather than having marketing feeding sales, you have a sales and marketing team working together on specific campaigns, specific projects. Because, for example, I think Seth Godin, if you try to sell to everybody, you'll sell to no one. And you cannot say the same message to a business that's 20 years old with a board of directors who are in their 60s in the finance space. You can't then use that same message and try to attract a young 5-year-old company with a board who are all under 30 in the SaaS space. And I mean, that's very polar opposites, but there's a lot of different tweaks in every different sector. We go through this a lot with clients looking at market segmentation. As a salesperson, you need to have different pattern, different feature and benefits on the phone. And it's the same with marketing. marketing needs their own feature and benefits. Marketing need their own, little hooks, tie downs, various different keywords and things like that. And the only thing that the thing that gets benefited from this is the end result, which is more revenue. Account-based marketing, like you said, is like a not silver bullet, but you get a few marketing people, a few salespeople, and you're going after that sector. It's a lot more focused. All of a sudden, everything's focused on this one approach rather than, you're trying to push through the ocean with a big board in front of you. It's a lot easier if you spin it on its side.
It occurs to me that I'm the only one who's actually using the term RevOps, right? And is this something that you just would never speak about, but it's just the kind of methodology that you roll out to basically just kind of get people to work in more joined up departments? Do you even refer to it as kind of RevOps, or is that kind of like a almost now out of date kind of term because it's just been rebranded basically?
I don't think it's a methodology. I think it's a culture, actually. Because I think methodology has to be taught, whereas a culture that's a business decided to do things in a certain way. And so we're very collaborative in our approach across the business. We could probably argue we have a few too many people in some meetings at times, but you never know what can come out from that. Whereas I think there's this big push in certainly in the corporate world, shorter meetings, less people in meetings, and everything has to be agendaed and everything has to be this, and everything's strict. And no, just let people be free and express themselves and have side conversations and go down rabbit holes, and because that's where the really cool shit comes from. And I just think that there's a lot of forces combined here really to create this situation. And even the world of HR plays a role in this, right? Because everything has to be a really strict job description. Everyone needs to know their roles and responsibilities, and they can't possibly go over here. Otherwise, you have to manage them back into line. And why do we do it? We expect all this discretional effort from our teams, and we expect people to be superstars, and yet we just want to shove them in a box because somebody wrote a book once and said it was the right thing to do. And so I think it is a cultural thing. I think the leaders of those businesses, and right from the very top, have choices to make about how they want to run their businesses. And as far as I'm concerned, like I said, in terms of that term of RevOps, we are revenue generative as a business. Yes, we help other people do that. I mean, we are proud of that. We literally walk our own talk. We're growing our business while helping other people. But when we look at revenue generation in the business, like Matt said, that's a team-wide thing. Yes, we have people that dedicate more of their working week to it. But it's a team-wide thing. Everyone's in sales and everyone makes a positive contribution towards our marketing effort as well.
Okay, so you've got a company that you're kind of working with who doesn't have that culture, but they've got their kind of targets, they've got their goals. How do you change that culture? What's the steps you take to get them in line?
Do you want to go with this one, Rich, or me to take this?
I'll sow the seed. I'll let you fly with it. So it's a really good question, that, by the way, because hands down, the biggest barrier to change is people's willingness to change. So yes, sometimes we have people land at our feet, and it's like we need more revenue, or we need to find a way to break this cycle, or we've hit a glass ceiling, or something. It's a trigger, and they think that there's a solution that doesn't involve them changing. They think that the change is going to happen somewhere else, and they don't think the change is going to happen to them. So one of the first things we have to do often is make them aware that they themselves and their department and their team are going to have to change, because it's not going to come from the outside, it's going to come from the inside. So we have to set the expectation pretty early doors. But in terms of what we then do to follow that through, Matt's literally on the tools as we speak with clients doing this stuff. So you far away, dude.
Yeah, no, it largely depends on, for us, like when we take on a client, there's got to be a cultural fit. Like we've let clients go who we will spend time with them in a meeting saying, this is, we need to do X, Y, Z. And then they'll sort of argue back, and we'll keep trying to convince them. And ultimately we're not getting anywhere. And at that point we have to realize that we're wasting our time, and, it's wasting their time because they're not willing to change. I think the thing that we always do is we sort of set out from the very start. The first thing, whenever I go in for a discovery session with clients, is I let them know what the rules are. And it's there's no holds barred. There's no rules. We're going to look at everything as to sort of figure out what the issue is. A lot of times we'll have like a director comes to us and say, oh, my guys need help closing. And then we look and we do like a full Sales Geek MLT on the sales team. And actually the issue is further up the chain. It's at qualification. That's where they're having this issue in closing. And it largely depends for me, just winning them over and convincing them that, look, even though this is different, change is good. It's the definition of insanity. You keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Mm-hmm. It's like for me, I like the Japanese concept of Kaizen. Continuous improvement and flipping the management structure up on its head, where it's not the people at the bottom working for the betterment of the board and the business. It's literally the people on the coalface are at the top, and it's everyone underneath them. It's their job to help support them to do their job. Because the thing that you'll see in a lot of companies, wherever it is, the people on the coalface are the ones having the issues. They're seeing everything, and it's sort of warts and all. Whereas you'll know this, Rich. I think you said it a couple of times where when you're at the top, all the little things get sorted out, and it only comes to you when there's a big issue.
Yeah,
because no one else can sort it. And I think by just empowering your team, empowering your team to do various different things, and we talk about RevOps and communicating across the department, by just empowering them to do this, you get so much more goodwill from them as well, because all of a sudden it's a case of I'm not here, I'm not a drone, I'm actually a human being. I have thoughts, I have ambitions, I have ideas. And as long as they're being, listened to, reciprocated, then obviously the loyalty and the work ethic you get from your team underneath you is just, compounded sort of exponentially, because the more that they believe and trust in you and the business, the more they're going to do to support the business, really.
Yeah, so we see managers need to want, managers need to want to change. I mean, a real practical example of that, we quite often get training inquiries, and then we have the initial conversation with somebody with, say, a sales director. They've got 10 salespeople, for argument's sake, and they'll sit there for 20 minutes listing off all the shit that they're not good at, right? And this isn't good, that's not good. Bob in the corner is not very good at this. Steve over there is not very good at that. And they'll bitch and moan, right, for 20 minutes. And then you sort of sit there, you look at them thinking, right, so who recruited these people? I did. Who manages these people? I do. Who incentivizes people? I do. Who do they report? Me. Right, okay, so is the problem those 10 people over there or you? So often we have to turn the mirror around the people and go, yes, I'm sure there's some improvement that can be made over here, but there's a reason why they're all here and all behaving in a certain way, and it starts here. Like, you are the one truth in the middle of that. So often we end up going in and doing a bit of groundwork first before we get anywhere near actually training the guys on the front line. But not everyone's willing to do it.
Yeah. It just reminds me of Gordon Ramsay's kitchen nightmares, basically, where it's where
so true, man.
That's what it sounds like. Where there's this kind of like they're not never willing to change, and it's everyone else's fault, but there's no one coming to the restaurant, basically. And so you've got to turn a mirror on yourself and say, look, look in your cold storage. It's all rotten, and you're the problem. Basically, what you're doing is the problem. It's not everyone else, basically. Yeah.
I was really hoping you'd do a Ramsey impression then, to be honest, mate.
I can't. I don't think I can. I'm not bad at impressions, but I don't think I can do Ramsey, to be honest. And I'm not going to give it a go now. I know that. I tell you what, guys, that has been absolutely brilliant. So that has been a kind of a real insight into kind of new modern sales, kind of cultural change, which I don't think people kind of pay enough attention to. And also, it's great to kind of get feedback from you guys who are trying to kind of change the perception of salespeople, because it's completely unfair that there's that kind of secondhand car salesman stigma still floating over anyone who does sales, and even with us who work in staffing and recruitment, who kind of fall into that as well. There shouldn't be. There should be much more of a profession and taken much more seriously. And it's good to see you guys trying to to change that perception of it. So thank you, Richard. Thank you, Matt, for joining me today on being double teamed by you two.
Still weird.
So guys, thank you very much for joining me today.
Cheers, man.
Cheers, dude.